Hey everybody, greetings from northern Michigan, where our Panicle hydrangeas are starting to put on their annual color show. We are very fortunate because they're absolutely spectacular, and I thought this is the perfect time for me to give you just a little tour of the Panicle hydrangeas so you can see some of the different varieties just before they're starting to blush. Some of them already really turned color, and also, this might be a good time for me to start giving you some tips and suggestions that I've learned over the years growing all kinds of different hydrangeas. But mainly I'm sticking to panicles today. And the first thing I want to talk about is, why do we get this color and maybe you don't? And a big part of it does have to do with our location. We're pretty far north, and even though we had temperatures over this last week that reached 90 degrees during the day, we still had a cool down at night. And that makes all the difference, because those cooler evening temperatures or nighttime temperatures, that's what helps trigger the hydrangeas to start producing a new pigment that changes their color. And that pigment production is actually very rare in the plant world. So hydrangeas are very special. These Panicle hydrangeas are special because of that, because they don't have pigment that fades. They actually produce new pigment to get these colors. And so a plant that changes its petal colors is rare. Plants that change their leaf color, that's very common. So something special about Panicle hydrangeas on that front. Now, the other thing though, that if you live in, say, a warmer climate, you don't get those cool downs at night, there are a couple of things that you can do to encourage a little bit more color in your hydrangeas. And the number one thing is making sure that it has the proper amount of moisture, especially right now, because Panicle hydrangeas, now you probably have heard this before, people said, hydrangeas, they get their name from the word hydra, means water, they like a lot of water. Well, that's not entirely true. The actual name from hydrangea is because their little seed capsules are shaped like an ancient Greek water vessel called the Hydrangea, and so that's where the name actually comes from. So, maybe Aphrodite was out there watering her hydrangeas and got, sick of it and said, from now on I call them hydrangea. But really, a lot of it has to do with that shape of that vessel and just was familiar. That's how it got its name. They do tend to like consistent moisture. And I will say that Panicle hydrangeas are actually a lot more drought tolerant than you may think. The only thing is when they're not happy with their water situation, they might not look so good. So earlier in the season, a lot of times if it's not getting enough water, those leaves will turn like a bright golden yellow, and then it just drops them off. And that usually is caused by water stress. Fortunately, as long as they start getting water shortly after that, they tend to be just fine. They recover very easily from that. They could also have those same symptoms if they're getting too much water. Hydrangeas do not like to be sitting in really wet soil. And sometimes if you have like a long time when they're in that heavy water, they might get those yellow leaves again too. But it's pretty easy to know if your hydrangea is really, really wet or really, really dry. Now, this time of year, the hydrangea, if it's in kind of drought conditions, what it first does is, when it has those full flower panicles, is it says, we're sacrificing the flowers. So it stops sending water and nutrients to the flowers. They dry up and turn brown early. And then if they still don't get water after that, because that doesn't kill them at all, actually it keeps them quite healthy. If it doesn't get that, then they start sacrificing leaves. And Panicle hydrangeas can sacrifice a lot of leaves before there's any permanent damage. So they usually can recover. When they're losing leaves like that, when they're under stress, it really is survival, and they are survivors. These things, they love cold winters. They, don't mind a little bit of drought stress. However, if you can keep them consistently moist, they're going to be good. And when I say keeping them watered this time of year, I do not mean you have to go out there and water them every day. I just mean they want to make sure that they're not super dry. So you don't want that real caked on, cracked soil around them. You want to make sure that, it's just, there's some regular moisture around there. And that also brings me to things like fertilizer. This is not the time for you to fertilize them. So with hydrangeas, when they start changing color, that's usually they're already thinking about, okay, I got enough energy, I'm going to send some pigment, get some nice color going. Then right after that, then we're going to start thinking about dormancy. And when a plant's thinking about dormancy, it is not wanting to think about new growth. So if you give it fertilizer late in the season, so I'm basically saying after the first or second week in August, if you give it fertilizer then, it doesn't know what to do with it, because it thinks, well, gosh, I've got all these nutrients, I got to do something with them, and that nitrogen, that's sure, I better put up some new growth. And it's really not great for the plant, kind of sends it out of its normal cycle. So don't fertilize at this point. Don't worry about it. For my fertilizing schedule, I do like to give it a lot of fresh compost every year. So I do that like before it leaves out. So here in Michigan, the plant is usually dormant, I'm going to say November through probably through April, that whole time. Now in warmer climates, that's going to be a little narrower based on when your winter is. And when it's dormant, that's when you can trim it. So it doesn't matter if you do it early in dormancy or late in dormancy, you can trim it then. But that's also a good time to maybe add some compost. You can add the compost, later on in the season too, but that's a good time to add some nice organic compost. They love that. That's also going to help your soil condition as well. So that's always just a good thing to do. Then for us, they start to leaf out right around the first week in May. So that's when I will give it some fertilizer. And the type of fertilizer that I will use is a time release regular fertilizer. Now, depending, I would recommend maybe going to your local garden center and talking to them about what kind they would suggest, because they're going to know your local conditions the best. But if you're not sure, just get one for flowering shrubs. Flowering shrubs, that basically is usually labeled as a rose fertilizer. So you get the time release pellets and you just put it on there. And I mean, when it comes to measuring, really, I just pour it in my hand, take a handful and pour it around the base of the plant. I don't go up against the trunk. I want to encourage those nutrients to be kind of where I want the roots to be. So we kind of go a little bit farther out from the trunk. Hopefully then all those nutrients go down, those roots will kind of grow outward and it's all good, going that way. I probably only need one handful, but I almost always use two. That's just how I do it. Then 1 month later, I'll go back out and add another dose. And then usually a month after that, I'll go again. Not necessary. Even if you just gave them one dose of fertilizer, they usually do pretty well, but it doesn't hurt to give them the other ones. And I have been really gone the fancy route and okay, in May, I make sure and give them one with higher nitrogen. And then in June, I give them a more balanced fertilizer. And then in July, I just give them whatever I have left over. But in the end, just give them something, like a rose fertilizer. You'll be fine. They are not particular that way. They'll work with what you give them. So don't worry, you're not going to destroy them. It's the same thing with pruning. They can handle harsh pruning. They can handle gentle pruning. If I just cut the flowers off, they'd be fine. If I cut them down to just little tiny nubs, they'll probably be fine. In fact, they're almost always fine. If I didn't prune them at all, they'd still be pretty good. They might start getting a little weird with shape, but they're not very fussy, and that's why I really do love them. So hopefully, no matter where you are, you can get a little bit more color off your hydrangeas. But the other thing that you can do is choose hydrangeas that are known for getting their color. So some of the most common ones, like a limelight, that one is not known for getting really, really pink. So if you're already at a disadvantage with your climate, then getting one that doesn't blush a whole lot means you might have a little less luck. So the ones that I often think of would be one like, this is a firelight, really good one. Quick Fire Fab, excellent one for getting color. Little Lime Punch, all those that I mentioned are proven winter ones, but there are some other nice ones that get good color as well. But those tend to get that color. The Quick Fire series tends to get pretty good color just about anywhere as well. You may still see them turn brown a little faster, but Pinky Winky, that's the other one too. That's a good, oh my goodness. Look what happens. I start thinking about hydrangeas and then I start thinking about every single hydrangea. So since I'm thinking about the different varieties, this is probably a good time for me to just show you some of them. So let's take a little walk around the property. I'll show you some of my favorites. So this one here I can spot from a mile away. It is the Quick Fire Fab. It's one of my favorites because it does get these gargantuan flower panicles. They're really tightly knitted together, and then they get this beautiful color, and they get their color a lot earlier than the other ones that are like it. So it's just a really stunning one. I also like its habit, it tends to be really good. If you look, I do have a couple of branches that are kind of low, but I'm going to prune those off this fall, and it's going to just be a really nice one. This one over here is a little bit different, has that little bit more kind of airy type of flower panicle. And you can see it has more of the fertile florets, whereas these showy ones are more of the sterile florets. This one is called Diamond Rouge. So the flower is similar to maybe a Quick Fire, which people might be more familiar with, but much larger flower panicle, gets a really good dark color. I always like the Diamond Rouge because it's just kind of big and showy. Over here, this one is called White Diamonds. So very similar to the Diamond Rouge, but doesn't get quite that rich color. So you can even see already at this point how much more color the Diamond Rouge is getting than the White Diamonds. Get over here, and this one here is a Little Lime hydrangea. So this is the smaller version of the Limelight. So one thing you're gonna notice about this is that it tends to get a little bit more of a purpley pink color, not quite the intense color that we're gonna see on some of the other varieties, but still, a good performer, and it's nice because it's more compact than the regular Limelight. This one here is probably a little quick fire. And so it's a little bit smaller. Again, that more airy panicle gets its color really early, blooms really early as well. And then this one over here is the regular quick fire. So even in the grow bags, you can see a difference in the size. So it's nice. And there's a third size called tiny quick fire as well, I think. So you can get 3 different sizes of this one. And over here, I'm going to guess this one is Bobo. That one's Bobo as well. And then this one here is a little lime. We have some grass growing in this one. I got to get that out of there. So you can already see the Bobo has a little bit more of that white type of bloom. It does bloom a little bit pink. It doesn't get quite as much color as some of the other ones, but it definitely gets some color. Again, the little lime's going to have a little bit less, but you can see also that the flowers are also a little bit more of a creamy lime color on the little lime and the limelight versus the Bobo. And the Bobo, known for all those flowers. I mean, this is just normal for a Bobo to just be covered in blooms. And then we'll come down here. We have a couple repeats. So this is the little quick fire and the regular quick fire over here, but this one here is Pinky Winky, and I am a big fan of Pinky Winky. Actually, this one I think is Pinky Winky Prime. So Pinky Winky Prime is kind of the upgrade, and you can see really large flower panicles. And what I love about these is even though it's starting to change color, it's still putting out new blooms at the top. So you often get this graduated color here and really, you know, nice long panicles, really nice hot pink color on it as well. And when you're picking a panicle hydrangea, usually it is better to make sure that they're pretty much open all the way to the tip before you pick it. Otherwise, this tip can kind of wilt when you put it in your vase or whatever. So sometimes you're going to already have it color change. If you want to keep the white though, then you've got to pick it a little sooner. Now this one here, this is another Diamond Rouge. This one here is I think it's a Limelight. Let me see if I can see. Yep, that's a Limelight. Another Pinky Winky or Pinky Winky Prime. And then what is this one? This one looks like it might be a different one. I think it's a Vanilla Strawberry or a Strawberry Sundae. Let me see. Yep, that one's Strawberry Sundae. So this is a more compact version of the Vanilla Strawberry. And look at how many blooms we're getting off of this one. This one is particularly good right now. But notice how it is a little bit more of a ball shape. So that's one thing I've noticed. Anytime I've had a Strawberry Sundae, it stays lower, kind of grows, you know, just more horizontal sometimes. So just interesting to look at. So I'm not entirely sure, but I'm looking at these leaves and these flowers. Could be a little hottie. I'll have to look and compare it to some of the other ones. So again, we've got some Bobos. So this one here must be a Level Up Pink maybe. No, this is a Vanilla Strawberry, I bet. Let me look. Yep, got that one right. Gosh, I'm getting better and better at identifying these. So Vanilla Strawberry is kind of the second most popular for the most part. Panicle Hydrangea, you can see these nice big blooms and gets a lot more color than what we see on the Limelight. So it's been a really popular one for a long time. You can see though, sometimes I do have problems with them kind of the skirt kind of bowing down. Now I could have trimmed those at any point in the season and then encouraged more growth up above. So that's an option, or I can just keep shaping them over time. Now these are in grow bags, so sometimes they suffer a little bit more. These are all going to be either Limelights or little limes. I can tell by that kind of limey color. And you can see again, we're seeing that same kind of difference in there. And then this one here, this is probably a quick fire fab. Another quick fire down there. What else do we have? More Pinky Winkies. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. This one is called the Pufferfish. And so this is kind of a cousin to the Bobo, but look at how huge these flower panicles are. And it'll have these nice ball shapes. So it's still panicle shaped, but little fatter flower. And then right late in the season, it sticks up another bloom and these will all open as well. So it has like a little, spits out a little bit of a flower here. Another Strawberry Sundae, quick fire, Pufferfish. It's probably, this could be a Bobo. Let me see how close I am. Yep, Bobo. Oh, look at how beautiful this quick fire is. This pink on this one is beautiful. So I have a feeling this one's getting just the perfect amount of water and just perfect conditions. And these bright pinks will gradually kind of turn to this maybe more mauve color. Let's see what else we have. Well, I'm just going to kind of do a flyover of these, because a lot of these are repeats of what we saw. So again, if you're growing in containers or in grow bags, just realize that it is a bit more of a challenge, especially with watering. And this is kind of interesting. So we have an arborescent variety growing inside with a panicle variety, and that is not something we did intentionally. Let me see which kind we have. Well, I'm just going to kind of do a flyover of these, because a lot of these are repeats of what we saw. So again, if you're growing in containers or in grow bags, just realize that it is a bit more of a challenge, especially with watering. And this is kind of interesting. So we have an arborescent variety growing inside with a panicle variety, and that is not something we did intentionally. Let me see which kind we have. So this hydrangea here is a little hottie. I have no idea what this one is, and the stems feel really good. It could be the new Flowerful, and I only say that because they're from the same grower, and I can tell by these leaves, these are also, I don't know, that's crazy. We haven't had that happen before, but it does happen, but I'm not used to seeing it. Quickfire, your color is just getting my attention. It's so hot pink this year. And so that means like our conditions have been really good. And I think it's those colder nights already this time of year. It's a little quickfire. Another pinky winky prime, just starting to get its color. Yeah, I mean, pufferfish, come on. I mean, this is a bouquet of giant blooms. It is so happy and so good. This is one that's been discontinued. It's called Zinfandel. So this is another one of my favorites. But now, if I were to get one, I would say this is very similar to, say, the Quickfire Fab or maybe the Love-A-Lot Pink or something like that. Now, this Limelight is looking, really quite nice. It's really got the big blooms. But look at how we have, almost fully open ones along with some new ones that have kind of come up. So very nice. This one is probably a vanilla strawberry. Yep. So there we go. Now I'm going to go look over. We've got some on the other side of those plants. So here are some more Quickfire Fabs. You'll notice these flower panicles here are a little bit smaller than the ones in the grow bag. And that's because these are in 3-gallon pots. Those are in 15-gallon grow bags. So they have a lot more root development. They're able to do a lot more. I always am very pleased with the Firelight. Firelight gets a really nice dark color, really rich coloring, and it gets the color pretty early on. I'm always happy with this one. There's also a little Quickfire, and so it's great. These here are Limelight Prime, and you're going to notice Limelight Prime gets a lot darker pink than the regular Limelight, and it gets that color a little bit earlier. Has a bit of an improved habit too, so you're going to see more branching, and it's going to keep that upright shape a little better than some of the other Limelights. Now, Limelights are, they hold their shape pretty well, but these are especially good performers. And over here is another one called Moonrock, and Moonrock, I like it because it does have those tight flower panicles as well, and it just kind of grows. It has a little bit more of a bumpy and lumpy kind of flower panicle to it, so something very different. I could see why they chose the name Moonrock for it. Let's see, do we have any other ones that I didn't mention? So even in the containers, the Bobos just fill out really quite nicely. Let's see, we had a lot of wind over the last 2 days, so everything has been getting knocked around. Now over here we have a Love-A-Lot Pink, and there's a lot to love about this one because it does get a really pure pink color. The flower panicles are nice and big, but what I'm most impressed with is it really does have sturdy stems. So each one of these stems, becomes a bit of a branch in and of itself. So really strong one. I've been happy with that one. And it has a cousin, I think, I'll put the name up on the screen, that's similar to it. I think it's a little bit smaller, but it gets a little bit different color on it. And here we have a berry white, so it's in the same family as the strawberry sundae and the vanilla strawberry. Gets a nice dark, rich red, cherry red kind of color usually, but it can quickly go to mauve as well, so it kind of depends on the season. So here we have some Pinky Winky Prime, some of the berry white over here, and then just a variety of different ones kind of tucked in around here. I will say the berry whites are really quite extraordinary this year as well. We are getting great color this year, and I really do think it's partly because of that warm weather with the cool nights. It's just been really good this year for that. Now, if you're thinking of buying a Panicle hydrangea and you're worried, is it too late in the season? Is it going to have a rough time if I try to plant it right now? Don't panic. Most of these varieties are hardy down to zone 3, which means they're very winter hardy. I have planted Panicle hydrangeas right before the ground froze, and they went through the winter just fine. These ones that I have in the driveway, any of them that we don't sell, I leave them out there. I don't put any extra mulch around them. In fact, some years they've basically had no mulch. The mulch all kind of flew away, and we sometimes didn't even have that much snow cover, and they went through our 5A winter no problem. And it's a lot different in a grow bag than something that's sunk in the ground. When it's in the ground, it has a lot more insulation. In that grow bag, doesn't have nearly as much protection on those roots. So don't panic too much about planting them out. They're going to be just fine if you get them in the ground now or next month. or even the month after that. They're forgiving that way. So now is a good time to start looking for sales on these hydrangeas because, you know, a lot of places don't want to winter them over, even though they're easy to winter over. You know, it's just easier sometimes to get new stock next year, get this stuff into people's homes, and you're going to have a nice surprise next spring when these start leafing out, and you'll be surprised how big they get in 1 year. So don't panic too if you get a smaller one. They grow pretty quick. So as long as they're getting water, sun, and fertilizer, you will have basically a full shrub next year. Now, don't expect it to get to the size on the tag, but it will grow a couple feet, it will get blooms, it will do just fine. So, and you don't have to worry too much about pruning it once, you know, they start leafing out. We usually do the pruning when it's dormant, but a panicle hydrangea, you can prune it any time and it'll be fine. You'll just be sacrificing flowers sometimes, or delaying the flowers, I should say. So, you know, if you trim them in June or something like that, you're probably going to delay getting blooms for about a month. So you're going to lose a month of bloom time. But if you need to cut something off, do it anytime. So hope you had enough hydrangea talk today. I do have a lot of other hydrangea videos, so go ahead and watch those, including one where I talk about all the different varieties. So if you're trying to decide which kind you want, I talk about all the ones that I talked about today in a little bit more detail. Also, I made a little chart that kind of lays out them by size, because you can find panicle hydrangeas that are stay as small as 2.5 feet. Others get like 9 feet. So quite a difference and quite different applications for each of those. So I think those videos might be helpful, and some of the other ones might just be a little bit fun. So I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know which hydrangea kind of has got your interest. And if you have some in your yard that you absolutely love, I do want to know that too, because, you know, every once in a while I hear about some varieties I haven't heard of. So I'm always keeping an eye out for those. So let me know which ones are doing great for you.